Alright, that didn't on the Dubutseshi, Sanyu Jimnendiki, no Varanasilia, Chugokolo Gorvigi, Dushin Kabach in the Chaturma.
Good evening on this most auspicious of evenings, the anniversary of the very first teaching that Buddha Shakyamuni gave at Varanasi.
Loba Lamji Neraso, Sosorangi, Taji Kawaji, Nyamlen Je, Tangazu, Jig, Simja Tamjig Dondalia, Anese, and Jambata, Nishikom, Andi Dondala, Simjig Dondala, Simja Tamjusan Yuko, Tower Show, Simpe Janshu, Simje, the Nege Pajin to Nyamlen Je, then Nyamlen, Nyamle, Tarachine, and the Jige, and the Sanki Vare. That's something and the Chuyukolo Govenane and Che Golo Chuyukolo Goa Dambudi Chagore.
The being that went on to become Buddha Shakyamuni was once ordinary like ourselves, having the same hope and wish for lasting stable happiness, freed of pain and suffering. He took that wish and applied himself diligently, putting the teachings into practice, developing bodhicitta, practicing the 6 perfections, and attained enlightenment. And the result of his enlightenment was the teaching of the Dharma. And tonight is the anniversary of that first teaching.
And then, that is on Jimnendigi, Chugukolor Damboko, and Chugukolor Damboko, Warema, the Dinya Lechu, Masonwa, Sanki, and the Church, Sunyore.
Today is not the anniversary of Buddha's enlightenment. He had attained enlightenment previously, but today is the anniversary of his first Dharma teaching.
And the Chujukolo Gora Dile, that Chujukologi, Yamnenjigi, Rimba Masona, that Manshiro, the Dembashi, Korsura, Dembashi, the Tanga, Yamnenjig, that's all Rojigan, Dembashi, who the Chekoro, which is that Dembashi, the Songarata.
And over many years, he taught a wide variety of teachings, but now is the anniversary of the very first, which is the foundational and the basis really of all the teachings, the heart of the teachings, which is the 4 Noble Truths.
Dijelia and Chuyukolo Mongorigin, Jena, that's on you soon be Chugi, and then Nimbonanda, Sanyu Sunni, that's on you Korongi, Loni don't up just draw tower, they didn't know Sanyu Sunima, Sunny, and that Imbodigelia, Anzugi, Jig, and Jaju Lam Rim, and Jaju and Lam Rim Chambo, the name Anzugi did my dues in that, Jig, Jeremiah Lam Rim Dudu, and that Lam Rim Sershuma, Sangadelia, and you. Some chair, Anzuga, Lobsang chair, Ravadi, that Sanyu Jimnendiki, the Giti Jenshi Beton and also Lob chair, the Bemas, Koya, Bushu Shadow down.
After teaching for about 50 years, the Buddha passed from this world, yet his teachings remained. And then they were commented on extensively in India and later in Tibet, such as by many great masters, including Rinpoche Lama Tsongkhapa himself. And amongst his commentaries, some of the most remarkable include the great stages to the path to enlightenment, the Lam Rim Text, which was also presented in abbreviated form, the middling length stages to the path, stages of the path to enlightenment, and then a very brief summation of the stages of the path to enlightenment, the Song of Spiritual Experience. And we are looking at, or have been looking at for some time, a commentary on that short Lam Rim, the Song of Spiritual Experience.
Dingy Dewa Toya, Sanyo Kovan Toya, Lamdu, Jesha, the Dangazo, Lam Rim said, and that Dudutional Ma, and Dushi, and the Kisun Suda, then into the Lobsang Dorje, Lam Rimbatilla, give you Chung Lam Yiriba, Jingi Lam Yiriba, Chimba Lam Yirimbas, the Rimba Sum Che, Dangazuki, that Dinanma, that give Cherin, Chimba, Chung Lam Yirimba, that Jingi Lam Yirimba, that Chimba Lam Yirimba, Sunga, Manzuki, that Manzuki. 강요 지요로 지나서 로정을 제차하기 싫어하다.
All the teachings of the Buddha, as well as the commentaries composed to those sutras, were composed in order to lead all beings without exception to the state of lasting, stable happiness of enlightenment. And in the tradition of the Lam Rim teachings, the stages of training have been laid out in a sequence. First, those trainings which are those practices which are in accordance with a practitioner of initial capacity. Thereafter, the trainings which are in accordance or shared with practices which are shared with practitioners of intermediate capacity. And then thirdly come the trainings which are unique or uncommon, or unique to a practitioner of supreme capacity.
Dini zada ngazo kisi dunrang amadila tagare sena ngazo ko khoye zo di ngazo ki leda nyomo bale tine ligore de nyomo badia denze marik pasya de yungkores jaza ngazo khorwala thayala an khowa pangpi pangbala an denze marik pasya de pangogores da di paya di ani tomba yitobe sherap komche pangogores jaza da ton yitobe ge sherap komgore jaza ton yitobe sherap de pemas ki chembores ne kizina ngazo di kora shu cha shirwa.
Last week we concluded looking at the perfection of wisdom, which I had looked at over 4 separate teachings. And this is a training of great importance because all our suffering comes from one root cause, and that is the ignorance of self-grasping. The consciousness that is not in accordance with reality, this ignorance grasps at the self as existing in a way that it does not, and from this all our afflictions, such as anger and attachment, arise, and a contaminated karma is accumulated. This is the process that keeps us bound in the suffering realms of samsara. But there is an antidote, and that antidote is the perfection of wisdom, the cultivation of the wisdom realizing emptiness. And that supremely important teaching is what we looked at over the last month.
Dini zada di yanjanga zuki janju simpe nyamlen parjin tuki nyamlen jinan songware. Jizada nga zuki janju simpa namgi nyamlen chiyale ya rinpa nyi mato meware. Rinpa nyi di karasane rangyu mimbar chibi parjin tuki nyamlen sayada. Shengyu mimbar chibi ki ane duyo ngobo shi sayache, duyo ngobo shi nyamlen sayade, duwa shila nyamlen chiyase, nini sungorwa.
The vast array of the activities of a bodhisattva that they engage in, whilst they are limitless, they can be, the best possible summation of them is into the 6 perfections, which we've now looked at in some detail, as well as what we come to now, the 4 ways to positively influence others.
야 안에 지금 람용어 교회다 람용어 견대야 뭐 공부도 지나 타르 안에 산지고 본 토야기디 안에 유민바 장기 유민바 제바서 대민 남는 아주 변의 신제여와 시시리마 지금 미메나 베 전부超过 산의 신부요 말와 세상 산의 신부요 말에 세상 미요 말에 세상 민 잡아나다 고사나 차상 잡아나 산의 신부요 받지 않는 지열에 안에 디나신 저게 사번 마선은 많이 도도 깜부시지나 대미요 말에 디마 산한 마루제 출루도 전에 안에 제대 안에 고자 섭섭 차지 뉴기로 제대 다 사번의 민주고로 봐 민고로 와 뉴기에 뉴가 찾아내고 디나시 다른 저기 유디 다 지금 나라도 당보 셈디 람용어 내중 게마토바 잠니제 게마토바 근데 장주 셈 게마토바 안도 소요로바 지나디 기 마멘바르티가라 다데는 마도 스냐면 제제 당아주길래 안지게 잠니제 게 장주 셈게 되네야 안지 람용어 게제 양저 동료도 베셔랍 모스동이 모스도 베셔랍 게 손바이나 되는 아주기 귀민바 민고르다 민고르다디 아주 랑래 핑고르 현래 편도지 두고르 지사 귀민바 지사 되네기 랑기 귀민바 제바시다 소소라랑기 세나 아니 지게 샬르니베 삼바 데니기 자치게 안에 컨트롤 삼바당 안에 레로당 안에 대소파 남미에 대소 고야라 메바 소야라 소수기디 메바 소발라 안다데 마주 진비냠네 추정냠네 수비냠네 존재냠네 안에 샤라비냐 파신냠네 안샤리게 파신냠네 냠네 죽제디 소수기 녀모 셈규디야 야야 차야 된다라 딩냠네 제고레서지 대 파신주기 냠네데 랑규민바진 베게네 파신주기 냠네사데 자주 선반남기 코로 상기 고바 토야라 대 파신주기 조 냠네 난고레서지로다.
The Bodhisattva has two primary tasks, and that is the maturation of their own continuum and the maturation of the continuum of others, the mind stream of others. To bring this about, the Bodhisattva engages in these two sets of practices, the 6 perfections and the four ways to positively influence others. The first set, the 6 perfections, which is a summation of the vast majority, the wide range of deeds the Bodhisattva engages in, they engage in these so as to ripen their own continuum. So what does this expression mean? Why is it that said that the Bodhisattva engages in the 6 perfections so as to ripen their own continuum? Well, in the same way that a piece of fruit that isn't ripe is not going to taste very nice. Similarly, or just like we would wait for that piece of fruit to ripen before we'd eat it, so too a bodhisattva needs to ripen their continuum so as to be able to rapidly spiritually develop. What identifies a bodhisattva with a ripened continuum as opposed to a being whose continuum is yet to be ripened? A bodhisattva ripens their continuum, or a continuum of a bodhisattva has been ripened when definite emergence has been generated, bodhicitta has been generated, wisdom directly realizing emptiness has been generated. So these are illustrations of different aspects of the bodhisattva's continuum ripening. An ordinary being like ourselves, these realizations are yet to be attained. Hence, our continuum is yet to ripen. And the bodhisattva engages in the ripening of their continuum so that they can eradicate all the obstacles to them becoming a Buddha for the sake of others. Those obstacles are the afflictions together with their seeds and imprints. Obstacles such as laziness, attachment, anger, jealousy, and so forth. The bodhisattva then strives to ripen their continuum so that they can spiritually develop and be of ever greater benefit to others. That's the purpose of engaging in the training of the 6 perfections. That's the purpose of ripening their own continuum.
소소랑 심전 탐지기 된다라 상기에게 된다라 냠내지에 직제로와 이 냠내지에디 소수규게 파신주의 냠내지에대로 지루하다 제가 라 민족의 람스 민바조 야 상이 살 고야 줘야라야 소수의 람데 냠내 마셔바나 상요고만 톱톱 말와 제가 소소 상기고만 토백이 쳐도 파신주의 냠내지고 제자디 랑규 민바제바서 랑규 규디 상요고만 토바제바 민바 탈두바데 상요고마 차르고 제가 상요고마 토야기 람 냠내 제야들라 파신주기 냠내 제야디 전주심바디 냠내 제야 다 심제 전주심바디 냠내 제야디 상요고바도 제 가르치는 냠내 제바 심제 탐지기도 현이 된 주비야라야 현이 된 주비야기 현 동화세야데 현디기 주비야 체도 안에 상요고바 토베셔 냠내 지거로와 데데인자 다 현이 된 주비제 다 랑기 유민제 상요고바 토바 나신 先让来先别身边现在这个呀，看作渔民节呀，上一岁了过后了吧？在那个过别个他们的了，先渔民节别都用我写写的，他先上先身边他们节渔民节，眼睛加什么样的表，就是拍进这个年龄节，所以个节把那些节看作来解决节呀，上就各方突出完呢，突出一个端他了，来查来那样的，先渔民节吧，是个多的。 다 challenge janju challenge dirwada rangi simja thamjige dondalya sanje ko bon thoyada shenyi dunga seada tigi tubiyagi lega challenge ni za phajin duge nyamlede sosorana sanje ko bo thoyechido sosoranange phajin duge nyamlenje 다 현달이야 아니 산조고바 투비 치르도 다시 소소인 냠내 제자바리 현달아 발롭종 랍주어제 나랑 소소인 냠내 제바나죠 콘솔레 냠내 제주에 뒤로와다
Bodhisattva strives to ripen their own continuum, and the complete ripening of their continuum is the ripening of the fruit of of enlightenment, the ripening of the path into enlightenment. So therefore, the Bodhisattva strives for the benefit of immeasurable beings through cultivating, or to re-express that, the Bodhisattva trains in the path, develops the path within themselves, ripens their own continuum for the benefit of immeasurable sentient beings. This is because the Bodhisattva understands clearly, without training the mind, cultivating the mental paths within themselves, the final result, the full fruit, the ripening result of enlightenment cannot be achieved. In fact, no ripening results can be achieved without training the mind. So it's for this purpose that the Bodhisattva engages in their first task, or one of their two tasks, of ripening their own continuum. Together with this, the Bodhisattva also engages in activities in order to ripen the continuum of others. And that is the 4 ways to positively influence others that we come to tonight. So these are done with a motivation, or engaged in with a motivation to ripen the continuum of others. This is essential for the Bodhisattva to fulfill their objective, enlightenment for the sake of others. The Bodhisattva then, striving for a singular goal of enlightenment, and they're doing so through the achievement, or the cultivation of these 2 paths. The one is the cultivating of their own continuum so that they can spiritually develop. And the purpose of spiritually developing is so they can engage then in their second main task, which is to guide others in their spiritual development. So therefore, the sole focus of a bodhisattva is to spiritually develop for themselves, to spiritually develop in order to guide others skillfully in their own spiritual development. So it's for this reason the bodhisattva strives to ripen their own continuum as well as the continuum of others.
남기 냠렌제 다 소소라나 산요 고반 토비 치르도 아니 간스 냠렌 내고요메 파션트데 간스 냠렌 나고 두스 냠렌 난고레스 디셰르와다 된상 안어 주이네 다 전시 셈바 남기 아니 산요 고반 토비 치르도 냠렌 디신 나와자 당안 주이네 두친 전시 셈바 두스 냠렌 디신 난고레스 대한 파 두스네 아니 마 직게 하고 와치 다 소소라나네 안딘 하신지 제 토야게 가지고 배주지하다 아주 저 장도 해야 돼 가지고 또나 that and the Dalai Yang that changes some Banashin, Yamlin Jetoya Mohban, Yaboya, Dondalanza, that in the first decision of Yashi Jando Chedi, and that is Rangu member Chibigeta, Yamlin Jeta de Marche Sare, that didn't then Marche Madida, Shenki, Shenlia, Pando Truptang, Shenki, that Yamlin Jeshe, Tarbata, Tamji Kimbe Lamla, can school Hore, the Nego Gobalia, and Kanakati Hore said the Nego Shuroda.
We've completed the presentation on the 6 perfections that the Bodhisattva engages in so as to cultivate their own continuum in order to be of greatest benefit to others. This is how Bodhisattvas are training in the world right now. It's how all the Buddhas trained in the past. And us who aspire to become a Bodhisattva and to train in the actual 6 perfections, we right now should emulate their example. Right now, we should emulate their example. Because combining aspiration With activity, we will achieve the result of cultivating bodhicitta within us and entering into the paths of the bodhisattvas. With aspiration and activity, this will be achieved. Tonight then, we come to the second of the major outlines, having looked then at the trainings about cultivating the bodhisattva's continuum so that they can benefit others. Now we look at those trainings specifically related to enhancing the continuum of others to aid them to achieve their own enlightenment.
Shanju member, Shanju Minji, Duashila Lapsuni said that Duashi, the Nika Lapsuni or that Delia, that Karelana, and the Semjin, to the Sanyo Tobarja, Nibe, Sambio Kune, Landes, said that Wukunla, that is Janjusemanam, that Udus Nangorwa.
Turning to the text, as usual, the translation is going to be a little bit different. Also, the editing I made here in this text, the numbering is a little mistaken. But anyway, so we follow it. First, it's the same. The manner in which to train in the 4 ways to positively influence others, with the motivation to attain enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings. So that's the motivation with which the bodhisattva engages in the 4 ways of positively influencing others.
Dambo doing over she said the color was in that Dambo did it. Jimbas or Jimbataya, the chiche, Jimbatiche. Then Niba de la Carsors, and it's a corsore, Jimba, and the Nyambar Mawa, or that Dambo Jimbataya. Then a Nyambar Mawa says, Niba de che. Somebody doing Juba, Shiba de la doing Tumba, the Shiba de la doing over she is or Jimba Jawa, Jimbatawa, and Nyambar Mawa, doing Juba, doing Tumba, said the Shidilla, that doing over she is or.
In brief, then, the 4 ways of positively influencing others. The first is giving whatever is necessary. The second, pleasantly teaching the Dharma. The third, encouraging sentient beings in the practice of the Dharma. Fourthly, living in accordance with the teachings yourself. These 4 then are engaged in with the motivation of bodhicitta, which is in that first line that we've already read. And then those 4 again in brief are firstly, giving whatever is necessary. Secondly, pleasantly teaching the Dharma. Thirdly, encouraging sentient beings in the practice of the Dharma. And fourthly, living in accordance with the teachings yourself.
That's in the Shuba Nigeria. Tanganzo let the Kusa Urwa, Dunga Sela, Dunga Gudma, Banko Urwa, Tina Chiguchigarwa, Simjan Shanda Digine, Diguyala, Coronzo, Diguya, Gudi Coronzo, Sour Mao, Mado Coronzo, Gumasabana, Digi to Tumara, which is the Dinesa, Coronzola, and then Diguya Gudima, Saju, the Lobdenche, the Chichagorwa, Digi to Tadi. Daya, Simjan Dunga, the Jago, Dunga, the Gugu, Mare, Dunga, Meba Sebala, Dunga, Ganis Yungu, Dunga, Gudi Meba Sukurwa, Chesna Dunga, Gudi, Garrison, Kissin Sebana, Yomobada, and the Leda, Yomobadan, Zevi, Dasenma, Denzen Maribal, in the Hungur. There's a deep Payagi, deep Pangures, Consular Lobdun Cheche, and the Consul Panju Yadi, Chesa Dunga Seadi, Dunga, Gudi Pa Panju. And the Dipaya Donal and Yamlen Jeju, Banju, Dunga Seada, Digi Gudipa, and Jimba the Children Sevala Soba General Soba Yamlen Jeju, and the Kusaju Dine, and Digi Jubiade. That Dondala, Semje Dunga Sead, and Digi Jubiage, Tablam Ditone, Digi Seada, Dunga Seada, Digi Jubiade Mado, Shanda Tablayom, Kavushu the Chagore. And then.
The Bodhisattva engages in these four activities with the sole motivation of benefiting sentient beings. So how does the Bodhisattva set out to benefit sentient beings? Well, the Bodhisattva is training in the six perfections themselves, thereby accumulating the causes for happiness and eradicating the causes that will otherwise lead to suffering. This is how the Bodhisattva is training in order to achieve the lasting, stable happiness of enlightenment. Other beings, they too long for lasting, stable happiness. They too need to achieve their own enlightenment. The technique for all beings to achieve their own enlightenment is no different from the technique that the Bodhisattva herself is engaging in right now. In that, the causes that will lead to enlightenment need to be accumulated, and the causes of suffering, they need to be eradicated. This is the activity that the Bodhisattva is engaging in through the cultivation of the six perfections, and this too is what sentient beings need to be guided in so as to achieve their own enlightenment. Just like the Bodhisattva is striving to cultivate the wisdom-realizing emptiness in order to eradicate the root cause of all suffering, the ignorance of self-grasping, as well as other techniques to eradicate, to weaken the other afflicted minds, so too do other beings need to be guided in the same training. And just like the Bodhisattva is striving in the perfections of generosity, ethical restraint, and so forth, in order to accumulate the causes for happiness, so too do sentient beings need to be guided in accumulating those same causes. So therefore, for the Bodhisattva to achieve their goal of enlightenment for the sake of others, what the Bodhisattva herself is training in is exactly what she needs to guide others in as well.
Dangba duyung obo shi se ndu labdo tsu duwa desi kora chizan duyung obo shi se de semje jimba tane semje nam kordo tsu duya di kordo duwa de jimba tabe semje jimba tane jimbe semje nam kordo duwa de che da dun je ba che dun ga so de nyabar ba wa dun je ba dun tun ba sa de je la yin ka sen de jingi duyung obo shi le jimba tang la ma do jimbe tang semje kordo duwa de la min do di che do 지산 야결랍교 지고 지산 진비게 진바당와 때 심전은 콜도 뒤바 세데 당보들이 숨번이 버시데 지샤데.
Okay. Just then to repeat from the text what we've covered already. With the motivation to attain enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So that's the motivation of bodhicitta the Bodhisattva has. They then engage in the four ways of positively influencing others. And those four are, the first is generosity, or giving whatever is necessary. The second, pleasantly teaching the Dharma. The third, encouraging sentient beings in the practice of the Dharma. And fourth, living in accordance with the teachings themselves.
simjen tamji ge dun sanyo go ba thobar ja ni be sembi ge kunye lang tie so janju semba nam gi da jan de ji kan che be ne da simje tamji sanyo go ba thobar je sembe janju sembe kunye lang je du chale nang go ba jisa da nang go ba de ne kunye lang tie kun lo de la da na thoma gar se ne da gar se sa sing gi jin be simje nam khol du du se de da ji nyamlen ka so du yong go bo shi na ne nyamlen na da dang bo de de.
The first of the four ways to positively influence others is initially make material offerings in order to create a positive connection with sentient beings. So this, now we're turning to the text, so it's a fuller translation of what you have there. Initially, make material offerings in order to create a positive connection with sentient beings.
다 코르도 뒤세 코르세 되랑 지고 고단으로 지 망부용을 지당 코르세 되라 나 저기 지딘바나 아니 예비고 코르레 지데 bombo디고 코르세디 bombo디기 요보다 bombo디기 된다 레갈레해 십주주에 됐을이야 아니 bom보기 예비고 코르다 bom보 코르세야지 되네 코르세 되네 실레 구고로와
So I'll read first my own translation, then the translation from the text. Initially, make material offerings in order to create a positive connection with sentient beings. And from the text, make offerings in order to assemble an entourage of students. The term we have in the text, assemble an entourage, is the literal translation. A meaning translation is to create a positive connection. So this term, assemble an entourage, can be understood in different ways. So the way we'd usually use it in society is someone with power and authority, maybe a senior executive or a boss of a large company. They will usually have an entourage, and that entourage would consist of those of many staff, those who help them. So that's in society, the general meaning of an entourage. It will be, for example, the staff around an employer.
다 양 코르 세디 야 지고에 지글랑 저 상계다 라미게 코르라 지레데 상계 코르라다 다 상계기 로마 최인가 로마디게리아 안 상계기 마 안추 송 대수게는 상계 송비기 최대 냠내지게 상계 은추기 안 로마디게리아 안 상계 코르세디 네지 고고르와.
However, the term, when found in Buddhist texts, has a similar meaning, but the context is quite different. So the circle of students around the Buddha, these would be called his entourage. So they are students to be guided to enlightenment. Those are the entourage of a Buddha, or that is the meaning of an entourage of the Buddha.
야 코르세디 저기 니코르 세데 데네고라 강비 코르데 세다 최딘 코르 세데 데네야 고그레 니코르데.
It doesn't really work in English, but it's a different word. The same word in Tibetan as entourage, because it has the meaning of the Tibetan word is more around. So just like around the Buddha, you have the students. Around the boss, you have the staff. So it's another way to understand the same Tibetan word is the surroundings around a stupa, or the surroundings of a stupa.
예. 지사도 코르세딜라야 안 개비 코르담 뽐비 코르 상기 코르 라미 코르 다 지기 강비 코르 최딘 코르 세데 코르실레 지타로지다 식 지바 임발이야 돈다카가 예딩에 지차고와 데니기 송다로직다 가시 코르 세디기 데니클리그라다 코르도 듀 세디야 코르도 듀단데려야 안데스 미라스야 지기네서 용구로와.
To summarize then, this word for entourage, we can understand as those who surround the king, those who surround the Buddha, or a Lama, those who surround an employer, surrounding a stupa, the surroundings of a stupa, the surroundings of a house. So we can understand the same word in these different ways. The second term that accompanies it, we have as to assemble or to gather.
예사당은 저기 최대니 콜라 미망고 뒤샤라도 최대한 콜라 망고 뒤샤 미망고 뒤샤라도 최대한 콜라들 미망고 레디어시로와 레디어들 콜도 뒤바시고 콜 뒤세나 수루루 제바들와 제사 베니기 지게 데모스트나 디망고 뒤샤시로와 제사 최대한 콜라 미망고 뒤샤사 베기들 미망고 콜들 미망고 뒤샤사 데니기 콜 뒤세데 데네야 고타지용 시기데 야 개비 콜라미 방보 뒤바시데 개비기 콜도 뒤바레시데다 다델라 뒤상델라 안에 지 나소용 생기데 개비기 안에 마도와이나 개비 콜 마마도 야마도와나 개비기 안에 쳬바타레 냐바땅라 삼제 안에 류디가 뒤바네 셈디야 안에 개벌 되어미나 류 뒤바레데 콜 뒤바티는 거와 나 뒤스데 상기 콜도 뒤스데 상기기 최송데 상기기 최레 상기레 대바다 상기레 안에 이체다 대 상기기 최기 년이 되니기 듬바 안데 되니게단 상기기 최 주야야 미망고 좀해야 될 콜도 뒤바세 자그로와 콜도 뒤바세 되는 거와.
To take the term then to assemble an entourage, and then related to some of those illustrations. The way one would assemble an entourage around a stupa would be many people gathering around the stupa. So that's one way to understand the term in that context. And then if we take, say, the king, then people an entourage of people would gather around the king, and they would do so because maybe to gain favor, or maybe so as not to receive a penalty because they didn't gather around the king. And then in terms of the Buddha, then students or an entourage with faith would gather around the Buddha in order to receive teachings. So these are then differing ways to understand the same term.
수수기 파 셴리아 펜베 삼비 꾸니라제 셴 디기 주에다 동화식이 펜베 삼비 꾸니라제 셴리아 상승이 진바 답변에 상승이 진바 다제 가서는 최 튕긴 주야다 최외 튕긴 강화유나 디기 바식이 최 주야 용말와 제가 되네상 상승이 진바다 진바다 고 로버치 콜 펜버 주요도 아니 가르쳐 와서는 고 저기 미디 소설이야 센터니부 셈다니보죠. 소소의 거부자야다. 소소의 이치용이야. 소소의 거부의 이치. 아니 셈다니보 써야 돼. 다 상승이 진비게 심지 콜도 뒤세 디스 데르고고래. 진바 로버치 진바 상승이 진바데 콜 로버치. 아니 콜이야. 셈다니보 써. 콜 소소의 자와야고 써. 소소 셈다니보 차야다. 소소의 거부차야다. 소소의 이치용이야기. 디네기 용야디 다 용야디 다 콜도 뒤바시고 콜도 뒤세 디세고.
The meaning then in our context, make offerings in order to assemble an entourage of students, or alternatively, make material offerings in order to create a positive connection with sentient beings. Here, again, with the motivation of bodhicitta, in order to benefit others, the bodhisattva will make material offerings to them. The bodhisattva will make material offerings to sentient beings, so as to eradicate material obstacles to practicing the Dharma, as well as to create a connection with sentient beings and a sense of closeness with sentient beings. Because through making material offerings and caring for the material needs of sentient beings, a sense of closeness and a connection is created by the bodhisattva with sentient beings.
디 가르치네 디 제가 김선 가르람나 디 가르치래 콘솔야 디기 주에다 동아세에 되게 탑람 람 냠는 제디고 된고고로와 제가 당보 소설야 거보지다 아니 소설의 이체다 소설의 셈단 예보주 매바이나 아니 아데 최닝메스네 결혼하시는 님메스 냐 데블링 말와 제가 디네자 콜리아 아니 디기 주비아 탑람 땡야다 동아세에게 탑람 땡야도 고갑라비오 말와 제가 디니기 디기 주비아다 동아세에게 탑람 콜리아 랍제게 롭던 제디 고갑라야기 dondarla tangpo ani ko nga zo jimbigi thone that je sansingi jimba roba che ani sosolya semda niba sem gobo soyada ani gobo soyada soso ichi yoba soyeche yabo chabe soyba dinigi semda niba chabe ina ani sosogi Geshe da ani kolya anji lobden jebane nyengirwa sosogi semda niba be nga zo jogphunzi be semda niba chiyoba ina ani sosorange kyono andini laga 누가 지기에는 결혼 누가 되는 지기와 말에 세하다 내가 야가로 되는 진에 야고요라서 롭던 제베네 그 어도베 셰바디 이제서는 얘기로와 어딘 하신다 제상 소설이야 구버제야다 소설이야 거우차 셈다니부차 소설의 이체라야기 쇠고야디 때가서는 콜라 롭던 제고로디 판도 주고 그래 니던 달라디리
The reason why a bodhisattva will engage in practicing in acts of material generosity to sentient beings is because the bodhisattva's sole objective is to take all beings to full and complete enlightenment. And the bodhisattva knows that the only way any being can achieve enlightenment is to cultivate the causes that lead to lasting happiness and eradicate the causes that will otherwise lead to suffering. And this can only be done through receiving teachings and meditating on those teachings, cultivating a mental path and developing that mental path into enlightenment. That's the only way any sentient being can achieve lasting happiness. Therefore, so the Bodhisattva can guide sentient beings in how to cultivate the causes for happiness and eradicate the causes that would otherwise lead to suffering. Sentient beings need to have a sense of closeness with the Bodhisattva. They need to trust the Bodhisattva. They need to look at the Bodhisattva or view the Bodhisattva as someone they can rely on, as someone who they can see as dependable, in particular in terms of their motivation and intention, and thereby the quality of their advice. Because we know also from society, we are far more likely to accept the advice or be positively influenced by someone whom we like and someone whom we trust. So therefore, if sentient beings, if students see the Bodhisattva as someone who cares for them, and therefore is taking care of their material needs and helping them overcome their material obstacles to engaging in the Dharma, seeing the Bodhisattva then as someone they like and trust, they are much more likely to accept their guidance and to be influenced by their advice in how to cultivate the causes for happiness, and eradicate the causes that would otherwise lead to suffering.
Now 저기 직진 나래네 다 지금 로봇 지간 디길에 지금 로봇 지간 근데 변조 통에 로봇 지간 디길에 안에 이제 그거 지고로 와다 디나신제 안에 난 되네 나나다 전시선바디기 되네게 제디 안에 저기 변조면 교디길이야 제 되네 변조 상승기 진비 냠네 진바다 제네 코드 뒤에 용서를 되네 지 변조 야고 여행디길에 변조가 통에 강한 매되겐 되는 변조가 로고 먹어간 디길이야 안 전시선바디기 안 상승기 진비 코드 뒤에 라서 말아 왔음 되네게 삼로 용식으로 와 삼로 변조기 통에 교 변조 추부 얘기를 변조로 거예요 말아 변조로 먹어야 제자다 변조가 강한 면디길이야 상승기 진바 다제 안에 건조 상승기 진바 코로고 고고 말 매반자 아니 제자 되네 인자다 상승기 진비기 건조야 안에 셈다니부 코르도 뒤에디 용사 말와 선배게 다 되네 맞 미교월마다 전신비 자 판도 주의하지 미교월마다 변제야보다 되네게 매 강한 면소리야 안에 코르도 상승기 진비 코르도 주세야디 다시 용사 말와 선배게 도고 용식으로 와
In society, we know that generally people appreciate being given material support. They appreciate being given material gifts. So we can see the impact of giving material support in society. So similarly here. But a doubt may come to mind. One may think, I can understand the effectiveness of offering material support to those who are impoverished, but what about those whose material needs are satisfied, or those who have an abundance, those who are wealthy? How would a bodhisattva materially make material offerings to such people?
내가 전주신비기 탑라 캐바 인자 전주신반남기 아니 셴뒤 변조 강한 매되게 변조 로보고 한 매되게 대수이네 아니 사생이 진비 코드 뒤에 용거라 간에 신고래서는 나디로와 베네 지게 칼라게 다야다 되네게 지 바지 제거 소전들이야 페로시세는 이제 야고전 두스네 아니 지게 대 칼라 되네 강바 되네 슈 칼라제 되는 아니 고sem다니 오서야 용구로 와데 지나디 칼라 디테디다 고 상생이 진바지기로 와 진바로 차르고라 지나 되네 지네고 아니 코드 소소레 sem다니 오서야다 소소레 이체 용야데 소야 용구로 와
Even those with an abundance of material goods, who have no material wants at all, still the bodhisattva would make material offerings to them. For example, Because a bodhisattva is renowned for many things, but certainly there's skillful means in how they apply the teachings. So, for example, they would invite those who, with a material abundance, invite them for a meal, cook them a meal, and serve it to them, and then engage in conversation, building a connection with the person, building a relationship with the person, in order to be able to influence them in how to cultivate the causes for happiness and eradicate the causes that would otherwise lead to suffering.
야 지금 되네 연구로 내가 소수게 잘라 로버체에 지금 변조로 던데 로버체 소소히 개발해야 된다려야 하는 거 저기디 연구로 봐 변에 외쇼로 다 가와이나 되네 레로 소수게 개발 된다 주여 된다려야 아 미치시되게 인지워셔다 나 지금 어당이 로버체 와서 변조로 던데 로버체야 되네 이제 소수게 된다 주여게 된다려야 근데 제바이네 내가 딜이야 되었 지금 연구를 때 뭐보다 된자 거의 코드 뒤투 말에 균 통해도 아다고 되는 가서 고가 나도 선배기 코드 뒤투고 말와 재산 편도 뒤투고 말다 자주 선배기 정부 자샤 신뢰 패배 선배다 제외 선배 군의 라제 안에 자신이 준비 통해 안 로제 도친 제바인자 코드 뒤hun구래 되네 코드 뒤에 소소래 샘다니 워차 소소 이시체 안데려데 안데려안 지가 어두치는 소야디 다네 소수기 삼바상부에 통해 정부 자샤도의结果마도 야 삼망한바 고고다야 삼다제 내가들라 칸이 뭐시 되네 지게 사생게 주 로바디 제베네 코코드 뒤투야 각부로와
We'll know in society that there is a danger that people make material offerings to others, give gifts, or flatter them, speak nicely to and about them, but with a bad motivation, thinking of their own benefit. So this certainly happens in society. But we also know that where that happens, the benefit is short-lived, because it becomes clear soon enough that the person who gave us gifts, who was pleasant to our face, who flattered us, they were doing it for their own wishes. Bodhisattva, though, as we see in the first sentence, they have a motivation to attain enlightenment for the sake of others. So therefore, with a pure motivation, they engage in this first practice of making material offerings in order to create a positive connection with sentient beings.
다 코르도 뒤에디 가르스네 냠벌마야게 된다라 이코 최셰게 유거 된다라 아니 냠벌 코르뒤에와 되네 자다 니바데 가르선다 니바데 가르선 되네 셈젠남 가위에 치도 신당 사왕원도 따데 바페바 마위에 바페스요라 되네 친주게 담마와라 소베게 최 냠벌 마와당 세요라.
Coming then to the second of the four ways to positively influence others. In order to bring happiness to them, show a warm and radiant expression, speak gently whilst pleasantly teaching them the six perfections and other topics of the Dharma. So I'll read it a second time. In order to bring happiness to them, show a warm and radiant expression, speak gently whilst pleasantly teaching them the six perfections and other topics of the Dharma.
냠벌마와 시디 냠벌마와 대달이야 저기 지다 직딘비기 저기 냠벌마와세 냠벌마다 직제 안에 용거를 다 직딘비 냠벌마와세 당 가지고 계신 인지 오셔야다 안에 이제 계시야 오셔야다 언도셔야돼 냠벌마와세 그래 안에 당 저기 다데 다 진비 냠래나 수저 냠래 쇠배 냠래 전주 냠래 삼대 냠래 셔럽이 냠래 디게 냠래 제다 최제다 냠래 제다 디네 제거라세 셔야돼 냠벌마와 최기도 냠벌마와세다 냠벌마한테래 니용고래.
In order to bring happiness to them, show a warm and radiant expression, speak gently whilst pleasantly teaching them the six perfections and other topics of the Dharma. The style of communication should be understood in two ways. Show a warm and radiant expression, speak gently whilst pleasantly teaching. So this way of communication we should understand in two ways. So the one is in accordance with general social customs, that this is how we engage with others, with a warm and radiant expression, speak gently and pleasantly to them. So that's the normal social custom of how we interact with those that we know and don't know. The meaning here, though, is additional to that, and it specifically relates to teaching the Dharma. So it could be understood then as the fuller presentation, show a warm and radiant expression, speak gently whilst pleasantly teaching them the six perfections and other topics of the Dharma. Therefore, we should understand it as principally, being about how to teach the Dharma.
ba pepa mawe ba pepa se nyem par ma se gor chesan semje nam gawi chirdo go ya ge danda ya an so su ki zumda de kema zumda de ya da an del ya an ji ki shi de order de shi de le se ya da an kyoran de wi be kyoran min ga re se an de ne ge ji gen an ju ge ki shi de da se de se wor da ga se le an ju ji tin be nyem par ma wa se de nyem par ma ta se de shi na de ne ge sem pen sumda de ke tuen gema shoya da de ne chen dus chen ki sha de da ngan joge nyam par ma wa sa chik sung de karsene de ne she ba na pa jo sem de ya ga bu yung wa.
Within the second of the four ways to positively influence others, both meanings of how to interact with others are included. That which is in accordance with social customs is right at the first part of this point. Secondly, in order to bring happiness to them. So this is the part that relates to social customs in terms of how we interact with others, which then follows, show a warm and radiant expression, speak gently and pleasantly. And again, we engage with others in this way, warmth and radiance, gentle and pleasant speech, in order to bring happiness to others. And that too, that social custom, is also in accordance with the Bodhisattva's motivation.
nyamba se urwa da nyamba jazada nyamba mawa side de chinjuge tamla so ba nyamba mawa side da chinjuge nyamne shede de da jimbe nyamne che ure skeno da kyono ya dusu chine shanlia pembi to nan jige shanlia robo chi to ya go re se de jimbe nyamne shede ne jige ados chine da de kyono ya jimbe dusu chine robo che kyono benjo osuwa de ne jeben kyono de chi ga chi ya robo che tu be ne be ya go res mi shanda ina kyono go yung gure ne kyono ina 기분 그래서 안데 내지네 안에 그 소수기 다 지미냠네 시행도 개와 치마이네 양아 저게 안데 소수기 변조용야디 규디 가슨 진파당와라 된 용고래 제사 소수기 균을 lonjo용야디 소수기 진파당와라 용고래 제사당 아주 체텔이야 균을 lonjo 갈간성용야디 개와 남미기 진비체고래 대자당 아주 체델이야 소수기 진박강 땅토도 제법 땅바 있나 아니 개와 침발에 소수기 아니 튕겨 약고 그래 튕겨 약고요나 체델을 샹로 로바체바 샹라 로바체도 그래 아 라니에 강아 팅 말했어야 돼 온도신에 진배냠는 게 이제 그 도스전에 랍셰게 된거로 된거로 와다 다고 디기 영향 그 규사의 그 규디 도수 제고를 해서는 말랍고 와다.
We know that it's important to follow social customs, and certainly it is for the Bodhisattva too. Imagine the Bodhisattva who wants to benefit others, in particular to teach them the Dharma and guide beings skillfully to enlightenment. If they don't fulfill this this first part of acting in accordance with social customs, in other words, if they don't show a warm and radiant expression and speak gently and pleasantly in order to bring happiness to others, but they rather show a rough or angry facial expression, they speak in a harsh and coarse manner, others are just going to avoid them, run away from them. How can the Bodhisattva benefit others and fulfill their objective? So therefore, both the aspect of acting in accordance with social customs, as well as teaching the Dharma in a pleasant manner, both the Bodhisattva will engage in both of these. And moreover, with these first 2 points of practicing material generosity, as well as communicating with others in a warm and tender manner, the Bodhisattva will be doing so with a motivation of bodhicitta, and they will be thereby, on one hand, creating positive, great mountains of positive karma through practicing generosity and with motivations of love and compassion interacting with others. So they are creating huge stores of virtue which will help them achieve enlightenment, their objective, enlightenment for the sake of others. Moreover, through making material offerings, as well as interacting with others in a gentle and tender manner, they're building strong connections with others. And those connections they will be able to skillfully utilize in this very life to guide beings in developing virtuous minds and eradicating non-virtuous minds. But a good connection is required. Moreover, in dependence on building good connections with others, in future lives, when the Bodhisattva re-encounters this sentient being, in dependence on this good connection, as well as the accumulation of virtue they are creating, they will be able to continue having a positive impact in the life of the suffering sentient being. And in particular, an impact that is in relation to the Dharma, in relation to helping the sentient being attain enlightenment. So with this very broad approach, looking at this and future lives, the Bodhisattva practices material generosity and interacts with others with a warm and radiant expression, speaking gently and pleasantly.
ni kiawa chima miji kiawa imene tungi meba kyo shu chiawa na dene kanga tigor cheza tungi thone kanga ne tatigi jimbe nyamlan cheba na chetile samdawe ne sosuge digi tuya da 책 kiawa chima le ne ani sosule tungi yabo yayagi ani gyusai gore seda digi yayagi digi ngana zoge milya digi tuya gyudi tungi mebe kanga thone digi kanga mo shu tigor bada 제자 데네 튕긴지 야고 쉬어베네 강아직 세고로와 제자 데네자 튕긴 야고 영향이 귀디 엔 진비냠네 제고래서 나 당아서다 추림 송고래 사제다 추림냠네 제고래서 제자다 추림냠네 제바 마제바이나 아니 체델이 나야나 아주게 안지게 강아만 멀리 그래 소주게 다 추림 마송바이나 다 샹리 뇌비기 뇌바기네 샹리야 미스 심제 샹 쇠바다 샹유 구마고와다 데니게 샹리야 강아제기 데니게 자와 제바이나 추림 마송게 데네 용고르바 대소변에 체델이네 소사 강아제야 돼 아니 기후용고 강아지고래 동아용고래 제자다 기와 치마이네 나송 계제 데니게 아니 강아용 제자 데니 자다 추르링아 이순 예주된비 추름소야 추름송고야 계신보래 송고리에서 만납지가비도 나디 아주 디기드베 귀디 디냠네 제고를 송고로와 데니 잠 추름송와네 계와치만나 하다미고바 톱투고래 제자 디itenle 디기드투고래 탈바다 탐지기미고바 톱투고래 세 제자 추름송고래 세다다 추림기 냠네 제야다 다 아니 디나제다 쇠베냠네 안 존중냠네 삼대냠네 시랍냠네 파주두게 냠네 어디서 봐 콘솔리아도스 냠네 제고래서 봐 롭된 제야디 다 랍된 제제 콘솔 하고 봐 제제 제주야 되다 니 주인님 벌마 와시오라.
Moreover, the Bodhisattva will teach the sentient beings 6 perfections at the topic of the Dharma. That's the whole purpose of developing the connection and engaging with them in beneficial ways. They will have set an example already of material generosity, and they will teach and guide and encourage sentient beings to practice generosity, explaining that from creating the causes of practicing generosity, they can be sure that they will have an abundance of material goods in their future lives. And striving to fulfill one's material needs is what tends to consume so much of sentient beings' time and mental energy. So therefore, if in our future lives we have an abundance of material goods, and we have also cultivated a strong connection with the Dharma, we will have our interest in the Dharma, we'll be able to fulfill or enact our interest or develop our interest in the Dharma without needing to put much time and energy into taking care of our material needs. Explaining this, encouraging skillfully sentient beings will practice generosity and create these causes for happiness. Similarly, the Bodhisattva will teach sentient beings the importance of ethical restraint, teaching them that if the mind isn't restrained in an ethical manner, but one continues to be under the influence of the afflictions, one's speech will be non-virtuous, one's physical behavior will be non-virtuous, and we will create problems in the lives of others right now, and we'll be creating problems for ourselves right now. We'll have conflict with others, we won't be trusted by others, others will avoid us. Moreover, with a mind that is not ethical, it's a mind that is not restrained. It's not restrained in that the afflictions haven't been restrained or subdued, and therefore the mere arisal of the afflictions causes one to suffer in this life. So not only does one suffer in this life, we cause others to suffer in this life. And we create the causes that in future lives we will suffer greatly. Ethical restraint is the primary cause for good rebirths, and therefore the Bodhisattva will encourage beings to live ethically. Similarly, the Bodhisattva will encourage others in the trainings of patience, joyous perseverance, and concentration and wisdom, because these are the causes for happiness in this and future lives.
Disa delia that chike semje kamda meba and sosorana nubal babegida kashile jimba nyamne jeshua kashi sudrim nyamne jeshua and desoltus nuba che dikilia and jimba soba jundu nyamne dine desolia nuba che digi goro yugen dikilia and shinege something nyamne shine tubiage nyamne jeshua and de nyamne There's Oscar Yuendikilia and Tombani Korchebache, Tombani Doyage, Lavchia, the Suya, the Chesaka Chu, the Gaje, Nyamber Mawa said, the Niki Chu, Suya, the Nyamber Mawade, Chesa Sanji Jumnendi, Denshi, Waranas, let Denshi Sun Chu or Sunwa, dear Nyamber Mawa, Dembashi, Nyamber Mawa, Sungore, and Ansulia, Taradunga said, the Digitu Lam Tembare, Sanji Chu, Sunga, Chasada, Nyamber Maware, Jinajida, Jermachige, Lam Rim Text, Chosum Soyada, and during that day, and the Sonam Gyatso, Dalam session was the Disuria, Mahanzule, Nyamber Mawa Chadure, Chesa Nyamber Mawa Chadure.
So read the second point again. In order to bring happiness to sentient beings, show a warm and radiant expression, speak gently whilst pleasantly teaching them the 6 perfections and the other topics of the Dharma. The Bodhisattva, therefore, will use their skillful means to relate to beings in accordance with their own specific karmic backgrounds and their own individual personalities. Some may be more inclined to the practice of generosity, others ethics, others perhaps wisdom, others perhaps concentration. However, the Bodhisattva can most benefit beings, the Bodhisattva will skillfully engage with them in this way. And they'll do so through teaching the 6 perfections, as well as other topics of the Dharma. For example, today is the anniversary of the Buddha giving the first Dharma teaching in this world, that of the 4 Noble Truths. And so the Buddha knew that the best teaching for those beings before him then was that teaching, the 4 Noble Truths. And this tradition of this continuity of that teaching and all those that followed, and that were then commentated on by great masters in both India and Tibet, has continued through today in the living tradition of great beings such as His Holiness, as well as the texts of former great beings such as the Lama Tsongkhapa's Song of Spiritual Experience, the short Lam Rim, which has been commented here in our text, the essence of refined gold, by the third Dalai Lama. This whole process has been kept alive, was initiated and kept alive by initially Buddha Shakyamuni and all the great enlightened masters. Coming to the third, then engage sentient beings in practicing the intent of the actual Buddha Dharma with consistency between their activities and its meaning. So I'll read it again. Engage them in practicing the intent of the actual Buddha Dharma with consistency between their activities and its meaning.
다시 송네 매니기 semjengi laglan ta khurwa laglan ma ta baina jimba tang gure surum sunggo sebe nyamlen jeogore sade dus nyamlen jeogore jeor sungjo mana macho medigi nyamlen mache baina ko gewasa thyo marwa dene zada dwenje ba sore da chö temba tar dwen nyamso lendu jupegi dwenje ba or nyamlen jeju gure sore deji da ngande jimba tana yago ore surum sunggo ore sa ma sheche dushe an ko dene sine anna jimba ngoso tangju ure chere jimba komju tongwe samba komju jimba ma tangju dene semjelya jimba tangju yada ada diren kyoran ma chi ji roba chi koran roba chi ju yada an dene ge roba chi ju ba na jimba de la jue ba de jue ba sine me nga de beje ta long jue ba se gro le jue ba dene ane surim songjuya surim songja dene nga jugi surim songya delya ane rig mangbo yong gre beneda denege ta domba gyune sumado gena nyenege domba se nga jugi nisha jige ringlia domba songjuya ane yanjik an dene ginin domba se de denege deba tes shukche yoga za ginin domba songjuya an delya an shukche rabdo chubige rabjung jeje domba songjuya an denege jige 이내다 미게 주봉을 수림 써야돼 그게디나 류가 예수잖아 너버 지중매 선배게 삼당 송주야 다 수림 송야 될야 내 가시게 다지게 샘제 소주 냐냐 내가 내신에 데니기 메신에 탑시균의 메딩을라 아니 아직 좀 수림 써야래야 안지게 미 샘제 소주에 미스에게 수림 송주야다 준시야라서 수 송주야 안데 아직 데네 턴에 탑름 턴에 나 수림 차상 송마도 왜네 나가리리리 송주야 양 게디 차상 송마데나 나 니미직니 송주야다 다어직니 송주야 안도스는 탑람 나서게 턴에 안도 수림 송야래야 저주 선바남기 도시네 신 송주진데 된죄 봐서도 많이 냠스 렌주고래 다콘주 냠렌지 뭐소 라렌 따주고래 데니게 뭐소 라렌 따주시 뭐소 라렌 따와데 다 된죄 봐서고래.
The third one again, engage sentient beings in practicing the intent of the actual Buddha Dharma with consistency between their activities and its meaning. The third then of the four ways of positively influencing others is that in the second, the Bodhisattva taught the Dharma to sentient beings. In the third, they're encouraged and guided in putting it into practice, because there's the intent of the Dharma is not for beings to merely gather knowledge, but for that knowledge to be integrated within the mind of beings. And in this way, for the Dharma to arise in their minds. That is the actual intent of the Buddha Dharma. So therefore, the Bodhisattva will skillfully guide beings in taking the knowledge that they have received and integrating it within their way of thinking, through reflecting on it well, and then also acting it out, putting it into practice beyond the mental level, into the physical and verbal level. So, for example, encouraging through teaching generosity, then encouraging and guiding their students in how to be generous. So showing the different ways of generosity, the three divisions, and encouraging beings to where they are more comfortable giving, to give in those ways. And in terms of ethics, to teach the three divisions of ethics in clear detail, to give students opportunities to receive vows, whether the vows of the non-ordained or the ordained, and to encourage their students to receive those vows. And then to also encourage those, let's say there are students who for their work or their pleasure, they kill a lot of animals. The Bodhisattva will encourage them to, at least for a period, to not kill. If they have to kill for their livelihood, encourage them for at least for a period not to kill. And then also to make the promise not to take human life. So even though this person may not take human life, but through making the promise, making the vow, merit is accumulated. And the Bodhisattva will encourage them to at least commit to abandoning the other non-virtues, such as those relating to speech. In this way, the Bodhisattva will skillfully guide beings in accordance with their own individual personalities and karmic backgrounds.
Da denegi jimbe nyamlen jejuya da korong le benjo yobai na an jimba tangju korong le korong benjo jimba tangju da and the gesi jik denegi tangtuya mebe gyobo shora chimene da sosugi kolya ngui da benjo roji teja odi korong di ba ji konsolya di tejo sa da jeju da ya disu ya korong di lagang ya di chi phusho sa korong phuro che sa da an korong di ma konsol jero che sen jeju ondo sine nga 저기 콜레 벤저 제 콜든 제는 콜레 짐바 당주야 안 장주심비게 답게 투제团도 숨고래 안 가시엘 장주심바디 베직 교비기 넘버 15로 전에 되는지는 강줄야 아니 짐바 제로 제세 롱야게 되네 그 롱메게 넘버 되는지 그래서 가서는 콜야 직 롱도 그 편지 짐바 당주베 당ben 소설 제베는 니기 짐바 당고래 제사디 파연 사야가 된다래 전주심바네 답게 투제团에 니네기 짐베 냠는 제주야 돼 된나소 용고로와
Similarly, here in the third one, engage into beings in practicing the intent of the actual Buddha Dharma with consistency between the activities and its meaning, their activities and its meaning. The Bodhisattva would encourage those who have an abundance of material wealth, whether that abundance is slight or great, to engage in material generosity. And to facilitate that, the Bodhisattva may present themselves as a beggar. They may emanate as a beggar so as to give that sentient being an opportunity to practice material generosity and accumulate merit. And for those students who are absolutely impoverished and cannot offer a practice generosity, a material generosity at all, the Bodhisattva then will encourage that student to make offerings on behalf of the teacher. The Bodhisattva teacher would encourage their student to make offerings on their behalf. The Bodhisattva would say, "Here, please offer this." And in this skillful way, the student will be guided to create virtue.
Alright, then Atisha, 당연히 대샤샤나 디링기 저기 롭산디 가르쳐고선다. 전시 semba 남기 아니 소수기 sem제 탐지기 되는 상지고방 토벌 쇼스비 장주 셈 냠네 상지고방 토벌 제발야 소소랑이 파진 중에 냠네 nen고레스 니 나와디야 sem제 탐 상지고방 토벌 치자다 sem제 탐지기 되는 지고레스 그래서 다 전시 sem바는 현준 현이 된다려야 현심제 디기야 디기 규사야야 아니 지게 가르치고 담보 아니 지게 소셜이야 콜야 시에기 녀에게 탑람들이야 안데 짐바라서바 산승이 짐바데 콜도 뒤야다 아니 기시 아니 직녀보 시에제 아니 기 숨다데 거부제 거부서야 되네시 되네요 서야제라 안 될야 안 지게 직녀네 제다 짐베녀네 제다 수르녀네 제다 개화사야 개화사 주고라 개회사 되네 지고래서 냠네 제주제 Deniga Lobtunje, the Coronsolia, Kawa Sajuba, Kawa Smosu Laland, Kawa Saju Kore, Denigi Kawa Savadi, Kawa Savadi, Digi Kawa Savanza, Kawadi, Digi Duya Kuchagorova, Chinchazan Kawachima, Maomban and Digi Gudi, Duhus in the Sajuje, Denigasa, then just Surum said, Yeju Dumbe Surum Soid, Shalla Nuve Samba, Chazan Pa Gaju Gagore, she said Shalla Nuve Samba. Digi chaza dunga ki gyure chiza dunga ki gyure ne gap tus na ka chuje ani du tus ka de chiza digi tubya da ya da dunga se ki gyungo so konsulya dus ne la len ta chu dus nangore jin samba ne dus nangore che an dus che ne ma di ringi di re chiza da nga ju ne jin simbe ding na wa na shi da nga ju ne na so so ran gi da jiwa da chujum la so be nyamne so so ka tu du che da so so ge ko gap yo be na so so ge ngo shen ba da so so ge da ndo ga wo nye bo kan de shwe be na de sul ya an de ne ge jin be nyamne ngo so la ji ge 직 전시만은 게 제바나 진아 저게 이내 강투치두기에 소수기 안에 지게 로바체 터네 안고 보셔야다 냠바르 마와라 소가제다 안디 터네 안에 걸리아 안진베 냠는 지주야 안에 수베 냠는다 안 주리 냠는라 소바 강투도 제주야 돼 난주이네 전시만은 도 나와나시 나서 나니네 강투 용투 강투도 제기 냠는 지야랴 베제 제야데 진간주 제바 되니 제바이나 안에 다ting 아주게 람림 나랑 아주래 냠버 마와 되는 제고를 소와데 아주 냠버 마와 자들 아주게 되는 게 라른 따와 있나 된튼 된줘봐도 최고래 된줘봐도 최고래 진짜 되는사 아주네 되는 제야야 냠는 제야를 비스 제야데 두시네 안디링이 제야데 되는 제난 대제만에 어디 다디디 시바디 차송아 된튼 봐서 되는 마 어두 쉬어야지.
We'll conclude then at the third of the 4 points tonight. To summarize then what we've looked at is the Bodhisattva strives in the cultivation in their continuum of the 6 perfections, cultivating an ethical outlook, a generous outlook, a patient outlook, concentration, wisdom, and so forth, in order to become a Buddha for the sake of others. And together with this, the Bodhisattva also engages in the 4 ways to positively influence others. As the Bodhisattva thereby is spiritually developing, she shares her knowledge and skill with others through these 4 ways of positively influencing others. So her skill in these 6 perfections and other topics of the Buddha Dharma is then taught to others. First, connection is created through material generosity, and together with this, the Dharma is presented and students are guided in how to practice that Dharma, how to cultivate it in their own continuums. So for example, in terms of ethical restraint, students will be presented the different divisions and understand the topic in a faultless manner, and then be encouraged, those who are quite limited in their capacity will be encouraged that to at least refrain their physical behavior, to act physically, in a physical manner, in a physical, ethical manner. Those who can will be encouraged to speak in an ethical manner. And best of all, students will be encouraged to restrain their mind, and thereby to restrain their body and speech. So not just with a mere determination of not killing, but to remove, for example, the intent to kill from the mind. And this and many other ways, the Bodhisattva cultivates the 6 perfections within themselves and then presents them to others, encourages and guides others in how to develop them. And this is how the Bodhisattva combines these 2, the 6 perfections and the 4 ways to positively influence others. So we ourselves should follow the example of Bodhisattvas, train well in the 6 perfections and live under their guidance, interact with others as best we can through the expression of the 6 perfections. And with those with whom we have an appropriate or a good relationship, where appropriate, we should encourage them too through the 4 ways of positively influencing others. Talk to them about generosity, ethics, and patience, and so forth. Where we have those appropriate situations, we should use our knowledge and our experience. But we should do so as we see in the third point, in a way that's consistent between where we keep our activities consistent with the meaning of the Buddha Dharma. This is important. Live as an example. And through following the example of our role models, we soon will become like them. In this way, we also become propounders of the Buddha Dharma, and we also are involved in fulfilling the intent of the Lam Rim itself. So thank you. We'll conclude here for tonight. Thank you.